Hello, good afternoon, and welcome. My name is Julie Yerkes, and I'm the Community Engagement Lead for the Partnership at Drug-Free New Hampshire. And thank you all for joining us on this Facebook Live, where we explore current prevention initiatives around the state of New Hampshire and really try to bring what some would, what is a profession down to the understanding of all the folks who get to listen to us. This week, the partnership is celebrating National Prevention Week, which is sort of the subtitle of the celebration of possibilities. National Prevention Week is a public education platform showcasing the work of communities, organizations across the country that are preventing substance use and promoting positive mental health. Historically, SAMHSA, who sponsors National Prevention Week, had one topic a day, like as prevention topics, but they've switched it to really recognize that prevention doesn't just happen this one week. It's not the only time that we're talking about prevention or teaching people about mental wellness and preventing substance misuse, that those are actually things that happen all year long in all different areas in the communities, at the policy level, in schools, and as individuals. And so they now have done this more this idea of celebrating year-round prevention during this week. And that's what we do at the Partnership at Drug-Free New Hampshire. Through our website, we really elevate all the different prevention partners around the state, and through these Facebook Lives where we come together to really talk to folks who are in this field doing things every day throughout the year and share those wonderful strategies with the rest of whoever's listening. So I am really excited to have with me today three new friends of mine: Marcus Brown, Amy. I'm not gonna. Let me see. Bouquet.
You're so close. It's Busquet.
Busquet.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Maybe a little French ancestry there. And Monsi Mather. Nope. Close. Monsi. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, Monsi Mather. Yeah.
Mather. Okay, thank you. See, I told you they're my new friends. I hadn't practiced their last names yet. So thank you all for being here with me today. And why we've invited these three with us today is because they all have one thing in common. They've been involved with one of our prevention partners around the state, the New Hampshire Teen Institute. And they're going to tell us about how they got involved in prevention and what they're doing now. So I'm going to start with Amy. Amy, could you tell me and tell the listeners how you first got involved in prevention?
Yeah, so I was in 7th grade, and my wonderful guidance counselor said there's this program called Leaders in Prevention that the New Hampshire Teen Institute puts on, and I had no idea what it was, but I went to LIP, as we call it, and started my prevention journey kind of there.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about LIP. Were you the only one from your school? What did that look like?
Yeah, so LIP is a weekend-long program, usually a group between like 6 and 10 kids from a school will go. And over the weekend, they're not only working on like prevention and learning about themselves, they're also working on an action plan that they can bring back to their school or community to have a positive impact.
Okay. And so I hear leader, right? I hear leaders in prevention. I hear that you're working on building some skills and developing an action plan for something you want to do back in your community. And so we have civic leadership academies. We have different kinds of leadership. And so what made, if I can ask, what made prevention? Like, what were some of the things you learned about?
Oh my gosh, 7th grade.
Yeah.
A little bit. No, you did. It was a little bit a while ago. Oh my goodness. Gotta go on.
I can come back.
I'll think about it.
Okay. And I will say, you gave us a little hint. You said I learned a lot about myself.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you learn about yourself? Can you remember anything about
Well,
that?
I think so.
Yeah.
So, I so when you're at Lip, you're with like some of your friends and your classmates, but you're also with other schools. So I was like very pretty shy before I went to Lip, and I feel like our prevention education at my school had been like pretty good before I went to Lip. So they would like ask a question and I'd be like, I actually know the answer. So I like gained that ability to speak my mind.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
of course.
Monty, I'm going to also ask you how you got involved with prevention.
Yeah, of course. So, similar to Amy, I was a participant in LIP my eighth grade year. And like same as Amy, I went through the program, and that was sort of just my jumping off point to sort of my work in prevention. You asked the question to Amy about like what are some of the things that we learned about prevention, and I can sort of touch on that if you
Okay.
want. Yeah,
Yeah, please,
and
please.
so some of the stuff we did, if I can recall, is we played a game where we learned about sort of like substance abuse in sort of a um, sort of game kid friendly way. And so it was like we played this, it was this game called, it was like the balloon game. And we sort of learned about like how keeping a balloon up in the air is similar to substances, and that was just a great way to learn about like especially at my age, like not knowing much about prevention, like sort of gaining the understanding through lip. So that was like one of the things I remember that really stuck with me during my time at lip.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks. How about you, Marcus? How did you get involved in prevention?
So actually, I'm not like them. I did not actually participate in lip. My first part was like, I think it was eighth grade year, like going into my freshman year. And like at the start of the summer, like school year is just starting. And I had this friend, I haven't talked to them in like a really long time. And their name is Star. Um, Very great person. Everybody loves them. And they were like, you should come to the Boys and Girls Club. So I came to the Boys and Girls Club, and they just recently started having a SAD program, which you may know it as Students Against Destructive Decisions. Um, and I went with that program for like a long time. I'm still in it currently, but when I first started off, I was like, I really enjoy this idea of like knowing what goes on in people's lives and having like the ability and responsibility of like, why don't we do this to help kids know about this, and like why don't we do this and this and this. So our SAG group at the Boys and Girls Club was like very project and like week oriented. So like, how we're having like this national like prevention week, like we would do it with all of them, like national trace traffic safety month is this month, and like all of those. So like we'll work with like prevention wise on like learning things, and like we do it with substances too. So that was like my base point. But I did eventually, like the summer of my freshman year, get involved with TI, and I went to the SLP, which is the Summer Leadership Program, which is for like freshmen through seniors. So I did have my experience with TI, but my running point was my friend Star and my addition to the Study Club.
Awesome. Thank you. Don't mute yourself because I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I saw you reaching for your mute. So tell me a little bit more about the summer leadership program.
So the Summer Leadership Program is a little bit different than LIP. It's a week-long program. I think it's a Sunday to Friday, Sunday to Saturday. It's one of them. And this one's more focused on like everyone can be a leader, and it shows what prevention is like in a family. So there's this big scenario, and it's like addiction in the family, and it goes over like how addiction can practically affect a family. So I think last time that we did it, or I was like my last year that I was there, we had a like a parent, and since these kids are a little bit older, it is okay. And I think it's like they're like freshmen, so they're like 14, 15, and they're like starting to get the idea of like what does prevention look like in a family. So having, instead of like, how when you're with like kids at a younger age, you have to teach it to them a little bit slower, like again with the balloon game. um
Yep.
TI takes a different approach. Like we'll just, I think what I like to call it is like jumping into action. So it's like there's like this scenario, and it's a little bit harsh for, not, I wouldn't say harsh, but it's like actually like what goes on like in like substance in a family, and it's like a jump into it. The kids aren't like, they're supposed to watch it, but like if they have too much like feelings to the point where they can't
Yeah.
watch it because it relates to them, they're allowed to
Yeah.
leave. And then like it's like addiction in the family. We go over. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
And we go over like the different parts. So we have like the silent bystander, like the aggressor, and it's like you get that jump into actually like what substances do. I think in this case, like the mom was drunk and like wasn't like accepting responsibility, and like it was just making like that toxic household environment. And also on top of that, we just go over like a bunch of different things too. We have like how your impact affects other people. So it's like we had a candle activity. So like when there was a negative experience, like your candle would get blown out. But then we have scenarios where things like it's happy, everything's good, and it just like lights everybody else's candle. So I think it's pretty beneficial.
Yeah, it sounds like very interactive, very like multi-dimensional to really help bring these complex and potentially like obscure, right, issues like substance use. Excuse me. Phew.
Bless
Excuse
you.
me. Thank you. Kind of into understanding, because we know that in our state there's been a lot of substance use, and it's been impacting, across the age lifespan, right? It impacts the parents of children who are having a substance use disorder, the whole family unit, communities, and so it's good to be able to like kind of talk about it and process it, and if one themselves is living in that, like to know that you're not alone, and that there, it's not an indicator of you, and your, who you are. It's not your fault, right? That sounds like a pretty powerful experience, and we know that that helps with young people in particular who are going through that situation, but also helps others understand how other people might be going through that. um, Monsi and Amy, you both also went to summer leadership program. Yeah. Monsi, do you want to add something else maybe that you took away from that experience?
Yeah, so I went to summer leadership program right before I went to college. So I was sort of on the
Mm.
older side of it. So it was just really cool to see such a diverse group of people come together and sort of learn about this topic. We had so many like beautiful moments. I'm not going to spoil some of them because I think some of them are a bit of a secret, but I can sort of tell you the basis of what it was. But um, you make such meaningful connections with these people in this sort of week long program. And like, going into it, I was nervous just coming in from like the older side. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna connect with everybody. Like, I don't know. Um, but it truly like TI really makes it such a like beautiful experience. And um, yeah, I like wouldn't change it for the world.
Oh, thank you. That's really great to hear. And Amy, do you want to add anything about your experience?
Yeah, just like Monty said, I feel like I really gained those connections. And I come from a really small town. Like my graduating class was 36 and is yeah, so and not very like diverse. I'm way up in the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire. Um but there was one activity in particular where the adult staff and Yaz's would like go to little spots around the camp, and you would go talk to them about their identities and like what those identities meant to them and how they've like shaped them, and just like learning about that was kind of like Marcus said, like a jumping off point for me to like go into the world that's not just Gorham, New Hampshire. So yeah.
Sure. Great. Yeah, but, and I was going to say, like, that's what I remember about, because I was able to staff it one summer, and that it was a lot of um, topics that are relevant to adolescence, right? And understanding yourself, helping or being with friendships and healthy relationships, and being able to perhaps recognize something that is a challenge for a friend, and kind of having some information and how to impact community. So it's all these things that I think young people are needing to know, and there's not, it's a nice open safe space to learn and be outside and be around a supportive environment. So thanks for sharing that. And so I'm curious how how these foundational experiences of these being involved in these leadership programs that are sort of prevention based has launched you, and what you're doing in prevention now, what that looks like now. And I think I'll go start with Marcus, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. So yeah, going off of that, I have been like TI and my side club like was my running point into prevention. I figured it is something that I love. So after I did that, they were really heavy on the push of like, oh, you should come back in like the winter, like January, February, March, like we'll have more programs then. I'm like, you know what, that sounds like a great idea. And I was like, yeah. So I that following like I think it was March or February. Well, before that, of course, I signed up to be what we call it is a YES member which is like a youth energy specialist. So this is like somebody to
Mm-hmm.
like help calm down the energy and bring the energy when needed for like these activities because they are younger kids, so they're gonna get distracted easily. But having this like figure of like authority that's not like an adult, but like also close in age to you is like they look up to you, right? So I applied to be that, and I think that and um, it was also pretty bad timing too because I just recently broke my ankle like before that, so I actually did do my staffing for the program on crutches, so it was a little bit of an experience, but having it be my first lip, going through, I think it was just really impactful for me just to see all these kids like go through this program that I haven't gone through. So I think it was pretty interesting that I got to go through it with them because this is the one that I didn't go through. And just like seeing them and hearing their stories was pretty great. After that, I proceeded to staff again in the summer, which was Monty's SLP, which this is 2023. So I was a staff member that was a YAS member, so a youth advisory specialist or a youth advisory staff. So it's like you have your staff and then you have one under it. And it was just pretty great. Again, just seeing it from the different perspectives and seeing how the different kids react. And I did have a big, heavy push for all my friends to come to that SLP. So that SLP was pretty nice. I got to see my friends and how they experienced it. And then this year, I staffed again, LIP, in, I think it was March. So it would have been like 2 months ago. Did the same thing, but it's just great just having these different groups of kids be able to do that. And a little bit through like along the way, I picked up another club at the Boys and Girls Club, which would have been the Keystone Club, which is like a leadership club that focuses on like advocacy in our community. So we do like cleanups and like we get like donations and start drives for like different things that people may need help with. Um, so yeah, that's pretty much my
Oh,
prevention story.
yeah, thank you for sharing. So, starting with, a local summer program that focuses on, well, I guess it started at the Boys and Girls Club, right? And so look at this foundation that our community programs build, and now you're leading and doing efforts that are benefiting the whole community. That's awesome. Thank you for what you do. Amy, how about you?
Yeah, so my most of my prevention like journey has been focused around TI. So I first felt that community connection in 7th grade, and then as soon as I became a freshman, I went to summer leadership program, um, and then I've staffed ever since. I've staffed LIP twice, I believe, summer leadership program twice, and then I've done like day programs. Um, yeah.
Great. And now where are you?
Now I am at the University of New Hampshire. UNH is very accepting of like many communities, so there's a dorm that's like prevention based. I do not live there, but I am like associated with some people who live there and like some organizations that work with that. So yeah.
Well, great. I did not know that. If you ever hear of if they need, a partnership could come, and if they need any resources or connection to things, we'd be happy to do that. That's very cool.
Definitely.
And how about Monsi? How are you? What does prevention mean to you now? What's going on with you?
Yeah, so after my lit program, I decided to come back to lip and TI and staff those. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been staffing those for a while now. I don't think I can count how many. um, yeah, so I've been doing that. And then I also participated in SLP the summer after my senior year. But other than that, I was really inspired by Lip and TI, and so I decided to also work with GIAC, which is this program. It's called the Governor's Youth Advisory Council,
Mm-hmm.
and I got the opportunity to apply and work with Governor Sununu and a bunch of other kids across New Hampshire to sort of work on things we can do for high schoolers when it comes to prevention. And so it was really great to take the skills and stuff that I learned at TI and bring them to this council, which is a really great thing to be a part of. And yeah.
That's great. Great. And where are you now?
I'm currently at Dartmouth College, and I am currently studying neuroscience and
Oh,
sort of trying to take classes that work with prevention or
awesome.
like are
Great.
around prevention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just had a neuroscientist on from Vanderbilt on the partnership last 2 weeks ago, talking about the impact of cannabis on the adolescent brain development and really the neuroscience behind that, and how that impacts addiction and cannabis use disorder, and also the connection with psychosis and schizophrenia. It was really, really interesting, and all the research behind that, and how that neuroscience, that research has led to so much understanding about how our brains work, and then also how elastic they are, so they can undergo from negative impacts, right? But then we know there are a lot of positive experiences that can help rewire them to be stronger. And so it was really a wonderful presentation. If you want to ever hear it, it's on our website. And maybe Julianne can find that where we keep our partnership convenings, where we have the recording of that, and share it. But thank you so much. And so you guys have been involved in prevention in a pretty, I would call it sort of a structured, formal way, right? New Hampshire Teen Institute is one of the prevention leaders, and you may not have known that you were getting into prevention. You might have thought you were going to a weekend retreat with your classmates, except it was called Leaders in Prevention. But like summer leadership program doesn't have the word prevention in it, right? So you may not have even known that you were getting involved in it. But those, opportunities to learn and be knowledgeable about how our self-care, about taking care of others, about building connections, about acceptance and supporting our community, members of our communities. We know that is like, prevention 101, right? Caring about each other and taking care. But though you were involved in those more formal opportunities, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on for the listeners, who may listen to this and go, okay, well, I can't go to that camp because I'm 40 years old, or maybe my summer is booked, so I can't go there this year. But I would like to, increase people's mental wellness, and I want to help with that, or I need some help with that. Do you have any thoughts on what people can do every day? What prevention looks like every day? I'm going to Anyone want to start? Anyone feel ready? Amy, feel ready? Yeah.
Sure.
Well,
um, I think, like you said, a lot of it is like interpersonal connections. So surrounding yourself with positive and like-minded people is like number one for me. Um, Also, just like being able, if you can, to place yourself in a safe situation where you know that either you won't be pressured, or if something does happen, there are people there to support you or to get you out of there or whatever you need. Um, and then also, I feel like I um, learn this like at TI programs in addition to just like kind of doing them myself, but like um, learning good coping mechanisms for
mm,
when things go wrong, because things are inevitably going to go wrong in life. So instead of turning to substances, um, being able to go outside, like there was a whole at SLP, there was a whole like workshop focused on coping mechanisms. So just finding something that works for you is probably pretty good.
yeah, absolutely. And knowing what's good, what works for you, and also maybe having a couple other ones in your back pocket in case you're helping somebody else,
Definitely.
figure out theirs, and what works for you doesn't work for them, but you have a couple other ideas, right? I have to say, I wonder if I can find it. I got this at a conference once, and I don't know if you'll see it, but it is a ring, and it is mental wellness coping statement cards.
Mm,
Oops. And I'm not going to unblur because I'm in a very dirty room. But one are coping statements, and these are just like statements, like almost like mantras, but for anxiety, for panic, for pain management, for anger, right? Like so, one is, I that is not worth getting mad at. Right? Like being able to just kind of repeat that yourself. So there are a lot of resources to help, learn some of these coping skills. And one of them could be just kind of saying something, if you're stuck in a classroom and you're starting to get mad, okay, I won't take this personally. Okay, so lots of resources. How about you, Marcus? What do you think? Any advice for us on an everyday basis of things we can do that support prevention?
Yeah, so I really like the idea that Amy had, but also putting it together with yours. When I think of prevention, I think of it something as like, I think prevention can be considered an emotion too. So when you get mad, it's kind of like along the same basis. So if you just like, what I like to do is like, whenever I get mad or like I have a feeling that I don't want to experience, it's like I'll sit down and I'll think about what the problem is. I'll think about what are some solutions that I have, like what I'm actually dealing with, and then putting it into perspective of like, if I did this, what would happen, or if I did this, what would happen. So it's like, if you think about your negatives and you put it into like the connotation of like real life of like, maybe I shouldn't do this, like I get, yeah, like, it might help me now, but like what happens afterwards. So it's
Mm,
kind of like one of the big things that I like to do, like personally, it's kind of like tied to prevention, but kind of not. It's just like along the same basis of it. It's like I like to kind of hold grudges, but like it's so I feel so bad about it because it's like in the time now when I have the grudge and I'm like, okay, like I want to do something about it, like that wasn't right, or like I'll think it wasn't right, but they could have been completely in the right, right? So it's like I'll have my personal experience of like, okay, I really like I have this grudge, and I'm like, okay, like I want to do something about it. But like if I do something about it, something else happens. So I like to think of it of like every action you make has a consequence, no matter how big and no matter how big and how small. So it's like
mhm.
when I think of like something of me doing something, like yeah, I might feel good for a little bit, but then afterwards it could be a lot worse than I'm like originally thinking. So this is like how I like to sit down. I like to sit down and think about like, okay, that might make me feel good, blah 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 blah, but I don't want to do that because I might get in trouble.
Mhm.
And I think that you can put that along the lines of like prevention as well. So if it's like, oh, I've been having a really, really bad day at school, like maybe when I get home, I can do this. Like maybe, like I'm not going to give an example, but I think you guys can understand of like, maybe I'll do this. Like, okay, I'll feel good for a little bit, but then like afterwards, like something could happen in the meantime, or you could like after that you're gonna feel the same way that you felt before. So I find it it's a hard situation to be in, but I think if you think positively and you sit down and you actually think about your positives and your negatives out of it, I think the negatives for you doing that like weighs out the pros. So I like to just sit down and think about it.
Absolutely. And I think, Marcus, like, so I'm kind of like the prevention science, kind of nerd over here. And what I hear you saying is like not acting impulsively,
Yeah.
right? Not reacting, but stopping, being mindful, thinking about what step you're going to take, right? And making the healthy choice to deal with whatever emotion you've got. If you're angry, if you're, sad, if you're, whatever emotion you're experiencing, but being mindful about that and not doing the impulsive thing, whether it's as isolating yourself in your room, which we know is not a benefit, or using a substance, or hitting, like responding with violence, right? So any of those sort of harmful that are going to be negative and actually hurt you more in the long run, but being mindful and maybe using some of the coping strategies that Amy mentioned,
Yeah.
so I think in prevention science, we know that impulsive behavior is a risk factor. And so you may not know that you're talking prevention science, but you are, because you're saying, slow it down, be mindful, and make better, good choices that are going to make you healthy. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. How about Monsi? Any thoughts on how we can, on a daily basis?
Yeah, so I agree with both Amy and Marcus. But I'd also like to add that like check in on your friends, like check in on your family members. Like I don't think that prevention needs to be this like big like concept, you know what I mean? And Marcus and Amy both talked about it, but taking like baby steps, like maybe texting that friend that, maybe might be going through a hard time, or maybe checking in with that family member who you haven't seen in a little bit, or things like that. So little actions like that can really help in not only like benefiting that like relationship and sort of like fostering that bond, but also just like overall prevention. Like you check in on your friend and they might be struggling with something, then you can like talk to them about it, and then that's just a great way for that person to not go in a space where it might be unsafe for them, and also for you to also connect with your friend and form that bond. And so it doesn't need to be this big thing, it can just be a little text, or maybe grabbing lunch or going for a walk,
Yeah,
little things like that.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you. That is so important. And, you know, um, those go a long way. And you might be able to speak to that experience of, oh, I feel happier when I receive a text from somebody that is just saying, hey, thinking of you, like the sun shining, which makes me think, those little night, how you doing today? Like, being able to check in is so nice, but it also, um, you know, that act of being kind is good for you too, right? We know that as well, like doing for others. So maybe bringing somebody tea if they're sick, or picking some flowers and dropping them off, right? We know we feel better when we show those acts of kindness as well. So it's a twofer, like mutual. So thank you so much. So taking care of yourself, increasing your coping skills, being mindful, and checking in on our friends and family, and even saying hi to strangers on the street. I was at a thing the other night where that was the big takeaway, was like it doesn't have to be these big things, right? We know these are just good ways of treating other human beings. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much. And I know that summer leadership program is coming up this summer. I'm not. They may still be accepting applications, but if some of the experiences that these young people shared today intrigue you and pique your interest, go on to New Hampshire Teen Institute's website and you can learn about LIP and, reach out to your school and have them, get a team together and go, or the Boys and Girls Club or the after school program. That's for middle school kids. And then we will be, and then also if that summer program sounds interesting to you, check it out on their website. All right. So thank you all so much for being here. Have a great summer. Finish off the school year, Marcus, with a bang down in Nashua, and Amy and Monsi with your finals. I'm sure they're coming up. Good luck with those, and we'll have a great summer. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.